Karen. Today I am going to show you how I made these raindrops in my nature journal. We had a lot of rain in March. It rained for an entire week straight, so I thought it was a big enough event for the month of March to record it in my journal. This is my nature journal. I've been keeping a nature journal since about 2022, and this is my favorite rendition of it so far. I've been creating these little cards that come out, so I make these little pockets and paint on them, and it's very fun. So I highly recommend nature journaling if you've ever thought about starting it. This is one of my favorite cards. Anyways, okay, so we're going to make these little raindrops. So you're going to need very minimal supplies. We're going to mix up this background color. I think I used lunar blue on this, but we'll make a more of a gray color. So you'll need a blue and a brown of some sort, and we'll mix up a gray. Or you could use, you know, any color. It doesn't matter, but yeah, I think this was lunar blue. You'll need a darker color for the shadows. So a Payne's gray would work great. Indigo would probably work, so just something dark. For the little little white bits in the drop, I used, I think, a posca pen. So just find your favorite white pen. If you've seen my other videos, I struggle with the white pens because I don't like any of them. But anyways, well, I think this is probably my best pen right now, so I'll just use a white posca pen. For this one, you will need a pencil, because we're going to draw out the shapes first. And I think that's it. So gather up your, and I thought, just for fun, we'll do the raindrops here, but I think I'm going to see how it looks as a bookmark, because I like making bookmarks. So I'm going to we'll do like a little bonus bookmark if you want to do that. I just cut a piece of watercolor paper to about, I think it's about 2 inches wide by 7 inches long, which makes a good bookmark size. And this is, I'm using B watercolor paper, but you can use whatever kind of cold press paper you like. So gather up your supplies and let's get going. Okay, let's mix up a gray. So the way I like to do my paints is I buy tubes of paint and then I squirt them into a palette like this. And then I will make a swatch card which I laminated so I don't ruin it, with all my colors. So these are like basically my favorite colors that I like to work with. In blues and greens, and then earth colors, and then I have my favorite colors, which are mainly blues and purples. So this works really well for me, so I would recommend it. So all you have to do to activate these is have a spray bottle, and you just get them wet and they'll reactivate. So we're going to mix up a grayish blue. And so use a bigger brush. I'm going to use my DaVinci Cosmotop in a size 8 and get it wet. And I'm going to use a blue kind of like one of these. So like a cerulean blue would work. I think this one's called Deep Sea Blue by Schmincke. This is a Schmincke color. So get it wet and put some on a palette. This is just an appetizer plate from Crate and Barrel. They were really cheap. They were like $5 each, and they work really well. They're a good size. And then for brown, I'm going to use something like this VanDyke brown, which is right here. And that is this one. And so let's grab So we're looking for a grayish color, but I want it more on the blue side. So let me grab a scrap piece of paper. Hold on. Just test it and see what it looks like. So I like that. That's a nice color. A little more blue. And just make sure you do have enough. I'm going to do a little bit more because I have enough to do the two. If you're going to do the bookmark, you just need a little bit more. And just make sure you test it before you start painting. Yeah, I think that's a lovely color. I like that. And then if you don't want to mix up a color, maybe try lunar blue if you have it. Which lunar blue, I know exactly where that is because I use it all the time. It's right here. And that's going to look like that. So I could actually use that maybe as my shadow color. So that'll work. All right. So get a larger brush and get your paint mixed up, and then we'll get started. Okay, so you should have your paper. I have mine taped off with painter's tape. This is just purple, sensitive, delicate surface Scotch painter's tape. I buy it at the hardware store. And then here's my bookmark. And I use one of these mechanical pencils, the kind that you can replace the lead. I like this because it's always sharp. It remains sharp the whole time. So we want to draw. First we need to draw our raindrops. And we don't want to do them too, like, neat. We want, sorry, I couldn't think of the word. We want them to look more organic and blobby, kind of. So we can do one of two things. So you can hold your pencil really loosely at the end and make sure you do different sizes. And I'm going to have you make sure that you like hit the edge so it's kind of going off the edge. So we'll do the first one right over here. Okay. A second thing that I do a lot is I actually change hands and I use my non-dominant hand. And I paint, or I draw with that a lot because you can get very wonky shapes that you probably wouldn't normally get. And there's Oso. Oso says hi. Oh, hang on. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I'm actually going to erase this one. I don't like it because they should kind of be narrow at the top and then wider at the bottom. So we'll redo that. So I'll try it with my right hand again and just hold it there so I can get a little more detail there. So just remember, however many raindrops you draw, you're going to have to paint around all of these. So maybe don't go crazy, but I think that'll work for mine. Okay. And then if you're doing your bookmark, we'll go ahead and add some on here. So I think my right hand, but just holding it very loosely, seems to be working the best for me. Okay. All right. So now we've got them drawn out. So we are going to kind of take a eraser. I really like these polymer erasers, or the gum erasers are really good too. These this kind works well too. But what we're going to do is try to lightly erase some of these pencil lines so they're not so dark, because once you watercolor over them, you can't erase it. So you'll be stuck with it, but which isn't like the worst thing in the world, but let's just try to lighten these up a little bit. Okay. And then do the same on your bookmark if you're making it. All right, so let's get painting. And you know, I probably did not even make enough paint, but that's okay. We can mix up some more. So what we want to do is just get your brush wet, get your paint, and we're going to start painting around all of our water drops. So just try to keep moving somewhat quickly so stuff doesn't dry. And you don't really want hard edges to form. So once you start, like, you're just going to keep going. And you're going to keep adding water, keep adding paint. One thing I did on my journal page was I did intentional blooms in the background, which all that means is taking clear water and dropping it into your wet paint, and it can make really neat textures and stuff, which I really like. Not everybody does, but I do. So just keep the edges wet so you're not forming hard edges with your paint. If you can. It's not the end of the world if you can't, but I'm going to come back in and add just some clear water. I need to mix up some more paint, and then I will do the same for the bookmark. And you probably don't need to watch that, so I will be back in a minute. Okay, so I have them both painted. I actually came back to the bigger one, and I added another coat of color because it was too faded out. Because I did this one and I saw how dark, and I liked the darkness better. So I just dried everything with my heat gun. So just make sure everything's dry. And one thing I wanted to point out before you go any further, go ahead and take a paper towel and wipe the paint off of your tape so you don't smear anything onto your painting as we go. Because that'll just like bead up and kind of stay there. So go ahead and get rid of that. And then make sure it's bone dry. And then what I'm going to do is take my eraser and see if I can't get rid of a few more of these pencil lines. I think a couple of them are coming off here and there. Okay. Okay. All right, so we're going to paint the drops. And so what we're aiming for, we're going to use the exact same color. So use the same color you were using. And I did want to show you one of the cool things about mixing up your own gray is that you get this really cool granulation between the blue and the brown, which shows up on your painting. If you can see how cool that is. So it kind of like separates on the paper and makes these really cool patterns and textures. But what we are trying to do is concentrate the dark color towards the top of the droplet, and then it'll fade as it goes towards the bottom. Okay, so we're going to do this in about 3 different steps. So right now we're just going to focus on color. So there are 2 ways that you can do this, and I will show you both ways, and you can pick the one that you feel most comfortable with. But you will need to kind of have a 2 brushes going at the same time. So I am going to switch now to a couple smaller ones. So this is the DaVinci Cosmotop in 4 and 3. So 4 is slightly larger. So we'll use this the larger one, whatever you grab, to apply the color. And then this smaller one is going to be your blending brush. Okay. So let me get this a little closer. I'll be right back. Okay. So grab your bigger brush, get it wet, and have a towel nearby so that you can dab, because we need a little more control now. And so get some color on your brush, start at the top of your droplet, and just dab some color in. But just leave it like that. And then grab your smaller brush with just clear water, dab it onto your towel, and now we're going to apply clear water to the droplet, and then we're going to get up here and touch the paint. And it's going to kind of just flow on its own now. So basically you're doing like a gradient wash down the droplet. So now when it's like this, you're going to dry off your brush and do the thirsty brush, which is just grabbing some of this color and soaking it up. Dab it on your towel. Do it again. Do it a few times. And you see it'll keep moving down as it's still wet. But that's what we want. So just keep an eye on it. But I think that one's probably good. So I'm going to leave that alone and I'll go to the next one. So again, we'll take your bigger brush. Just dab your color up at the top. And then take your smaller brush. Dab off some of the excess water, and we'll do the same thing. Start applying the water, and then slowly make your way up to where the paint is, and then just grab the paint and let it start flowing. The paint will only flow where there's water. And then I'm doing thirsty brush on that one. And that one I'm going to actually add a little more dark up there. So those two look really good already. Okay, so we'll do one more like that, and then I'll show you the other way. So grab your bigger brush again, do a dab at the top, clean water, dab, and then start applying water to your droplet, and then slowly make your way up to the paint, and then let it flow. And then thirsty brush. And if you want to try to manipulate it a little, you can, if you want it to get it to move. And I'm actually going to darken up that just so it stands out better. And thirsty brush. Okay, so we'll leave those. So the other way you could do this is you could wet the whole thing, the whole droplet with clear water, and then drop your paint in. So we're going to do that. I'm going to use my smaller brush for this. And I'm going to just wet this entire thing. So now the whole drop is just wet. And then I will come and I will drop my color in. And it will go ahead and just start flowing on its own. And then you can thirsty brush it and try to manipulate the color. I think you have a little less control this way. But it still looks pretty. I mean, I think that's very pretty. So that's up to you. I'm going to probably do it the original way. I don't know. They're both nice. We'll do let's do one more like that. We'll do one more like that because you just don't want it to be too wet. So just be careful you're not flooding your paper. But it does flow nicely that way. I'm going to come back and darken that up a little bit. Yeah, that's nice too. We'll just do it both ways because I like them both. So let's go back to the bigger brush. Put a dab. And if you want to speed this up, you can probably just do two at once. We'll try that. And then switch to your smaller brush. Apply the water and then let it flow. I'm going to add a little more dark to the top. You can always add some darkness to the top while it's still wet. Thirsty brush if you need to control it. Okay. I will do this one. Well, let's do the wet on wet. The second technique with this one. I honestly don't know which one I like better. So get it wet, but not too wet. And then drop in your paint and let it flow. And then you can kind of move it around as you need to. Okay. Thirsty brush it if you need to. Okay, I think that looks really good. And of course I'm like running out of paint again. So I'll tell you what, I am going to mix up some more paint and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the bigger piece. And I am not going to record it because I think you get the drift. And then when we come back, we will finish it up. And while your painting is still wet, if it is still wet, you can go back in and darken it up. So try to get the tops of the drops as dark as possible. So I'm just going in and just adding some paint and some clear water. Some of these guys just to darken that up a bit for drama. And then this one, it's a little just too white down here. So I'm going to add a little more paint and just kind of fill that in a little bit. Okay. I think those look really cool. I'm very excited. Okay, so I will finish the other side and then I'll be back and we'll continue. Okay, I'm back. So here are my two pages. I think they're so pretty. They look like little jewels. I really like them, like little rocks, almost. Okay, so put a towel down. Okay, so I don't drip all over everything. Grab a darker color. I decided to use neutral tint, which is like a bluish gray color, this one. But a Payne's gray would work, or even a black would work. But I went with this one. Okay. And we're going to kind of do it the same way. So you're going to work with two brushes. This time I swapped to an even smaller one, a number 1, and I'll keep the number 3. The number 1 is going to apply the paint. The number 3 is going to blend the paint, and have your towel handy too. So I'm going to start on this one. And I'm going to get my smallest brush wet and then dab it off. And then grab the paint. And then what we're going to do is just gently put it around a little bit. You're not outlining the whole thing. You're just putting it around a little bit of the drop. And you're immediately going to come in with a wet brush that you dab off so it's not too wet. And you're going to blend. And then if you got too much water, like I think I did, I'm going to just dab it off right away. I didn't mean to do quite that much. Yeah, like that. And then we're going to leave it. And then we can go back and fine tune it later. So let's do it again. Probably dab some of the color off. We'll come around here. Oops, I dabbed off too much. Okay. So we'll do this. And then we'll come back in and gently blend. Okay. What am I doing? Getting confused? Okay. Blend. And I'm going to dab that one off because that's a little too much. Blend that out a little. I'm going to go back into that while it's still wet and just add a little bit more. I might just stick with this smaller brush. I think that other brush is too big for what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going to just use this same brush and just put it in water and clean it off between every application. I think And if you're dabbing with your paper towel, just make sure you're not dabbing paint back onto your painting. Okay. If you see anything you want to darken up, this would be a good time to maybe add a little bit more dark. Remember, you're not encircling the entire thing. You're just kind of sorry. It's hard to talk and paint. You're just doing part of it to emphasize the drop sticking out from the window or whatever. So I will go through and do the larger painting, and then I will be back and we'll finish it up. We're almost done. Okay, I'm back. I have both sides done. And I think I decided I'm going to do one little thing. Some of mine aren't as defined as I would like, so I am actually going to add some pencil. And just a normal pencil. This is a Blackwing pencil, which I really like. And I'm just going to darken some of this up, because sometimes it's a little easier just to use pencil lead instead of paint, because watercolor can be tricky. So we're not going to go crazy. We're not going to do it everywhere, but we're just going to add some darkness. And can you see how cool that is? It's like, it's like magic. So I'm just going to go along here. And again, I'm not outlining the entire thing. I'm just kind of adding, and it just a tiny little bit is kind of enough to just make it pop off the page. See that? Isn't that cool? I actually didn't do that in the journal. I kind of wish I could always go back and do it, I suppose, but this is very cool. And the good thing about pencil is if you like overdo one, you can just erase it. These Blackwing pencils are very dark. Oh, that's nice. And just, I would make sure you don't smear it. So put like a paper towel or something, or a piece of scratch paper down so you're not smearing the graphite. That would be my only worry about doing it like this. Okay, I think that looks way better. I really like that. So I'm going to go through and do the bookmark. And I will not record that because I'm sure you can see what I did. And then we will come back and add some white pen and then we'll be done. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, both sides are done. And I think they look really good. So now we just need the finishing touch, which is to add some white marks. So the white marks are the little reflections of light in the droplet. And there's no rhyme or reason, like you don't need to make them all the same, but we're just kind of doing like a little reflection at the top and maybe at the sides of each droplet. And so you can do a little curve white line to kind of indicate that it's a rounded surface. So that's what we're going to try to do. And that would be easier to do with your bigger drops. With the little drops, I would just say put a little white mark in the top and be done with it. So we'll start with the bigger side first. I really like how this looks. Okay, so I'm going to get a scrap piece of paper. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, never throw away your scratch pieces of watercolor paper because you can always use them for scrap paper. So see how that just made a big old blob of acrylic paint? These pens are very finicky, so you just have to be careful, and you want to do that before you start working on your piece, because that would be sad if you mess that up. So just keep that off to the side, and you can work on your pen as you go. So for these bigger ones, we'll maybe just do like, again, hold your pen loose, because we don't want it to be so rigid. And we're kind of just going to do a few reflective marks and make some of them curved. And try to keep the smaller, the smaller ones smaller if you can. On some of them, put maybe 2. And then like, okay, on like this one right here, it looks like a bean. Anyway, so I lost some of the light on that. It just like filled in the whole thing with color. So in this case, I'm actually going to try to outline it a little bit. And I'm immediately like going to smear it with my finger, which I don't know. Real artists probably don't do that, but I do. Anyway, so that kind of like brought some definition back. I shouldn't say real artist. I'm a real artist, but we're all real artists. So for these little guys where I kind of put in too much color, I'm just doing that really fast just to bring some of the white back, if that makes sense. Okay. 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 And make sure you got them all. Oh, look at that one. I didn't even see that. That one's like missed that completely. I'll have to go back in and put some colored paint in that. I like totally missed that one. Okay. So I will fix that one. And so go back through yours and make sure you got them all. And then I'm going to finish up the bookmark side, and then we'll come back, peel the tape, and take a look. I'm very excited. Be right back. Okay, so I actually did something to the bookmark one. I was kind of just playing, which is always a good thing. I took one of these Derwent inktense pencils, which are water soluble. So they act like a colored pencil, but then you can soften it, the color with water. And I added it to these guys just to see what that would do. And it made it more vivid. It's definitely more vivid. I don't know that I like it any better. But anyways, I was just wondering if I could add some definition to it that way. So I might actually try to do some drops. Oh, I just got acrylic paint all over my fingers. I might try to do some drops just with these Derwent inktense pencils, because I'm trying to be better about using all my supplies. So just a thought. Anyways, so we'll remove the tape. And so when you remove the tape, you want to be careful. Go slow and pull it at an angle so you don't rip anything, because that would be sad. Just be patient. Okay. Look at that. Look how great they look. They just jump off the page, don't they? So, I really hope that you enjoyed that and that you like yours. If for whatever reason yours didn't turn out, try again, because it's all just practice anyways. I mean, obviously some of mine are better than others. Like that one's really good. Those two are not great. But when you look at it as a whole picture, I don't think anybody's going to like be picking apart individual droplets, because it's the whole composition. So anyways, I hope that you found that helpful, and I hope you find something cool to do with your droplets. And I will see you next time.